Thank you for joining us for the IEEE Computer Society Standards webinar series, brought to you by the Standards Activities Board. With over 225 standards that transform the way we live, work, and communicate, the IEEE Computer Society sets the standard for design automation, simulation, testing technologies, Ethernet and Wi-Fi, quality assurance processes, systems architecture, DevOps, and more. Standards deliver best practice processes for developing market-ready interoperating systems, products, and services. You can have an impact by joining one of the over 200 IEEE Computer Society Standards working groups. Participating in one of the working groups grants you access to information that reduces risks, increases proficiency, and shapes the future of the industry. Help determine what's next in computing technology. Learn more about our standard working groups at computer.org/standards.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to today's webinar from our Standards Activities Board series. In today's presentation, Knowledge Graph Standards, Unifying Data Representation with Ruiqi Li and Edward Au. My name is Scott Levine, and I'm the membership manager here at the IEEE Computer Society. Before we get started, I would like to address some housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded. You can ask any questions in the Q&A box you see on your screen. Our presenters will answer as many questions as they can following their presentation. If possible, please reference the slide your question refers to, and a copy of the slides and a recording of the webinar will be emailed to you a day or so after the webinar today. IEEE Standard P2807, the Framework of Knowledge Graphs, is just one of the many standards founded by IEEE. Keep up with our ongoing calls for participation and get involved with the Standards Board activities. The IEEE Computer Society is a global community where you can learn about the standard and discover more. As part of this network, you have the opportunity to connect with professionals from all over the world, expand your knowledge with the Computer Society Digital Library, which features nearly 850,000 papers and articles highlighting the latest research. Furthermore, you can grow with other professionals through various events such as technical communities, conferences, and student chapters. Information will be shared after the webinar, and you can always learn more at computer.org. Focusing on today's topic, knowledge graphs help connect machine learning experts with experts from different industries and transform human knowledge to machine knowledge. Knowledge graphs provide a natural and efficient way to represent entities and their relationships in a format that is understandable by machines and humans. In this webinar, we will have a live discussion with Dr. Ruiqi Li on his career journey as a computer engineer, his involvement in international standards, and his work specifically on IEEE P2807. And as just mentioned, joining us today is Ruiqi Li. He's the chair of the Knowledge Graph Verification Working Group, and serving as a moderator today is Edward Au, who is one of the chairs of the Standards Activities Board. Ruiqi Li works at China Electric Standardization Institute and is engaged in development and promotion of standards in the fields of artificial intelligence and intelligent manufacturing. To date, he has been very involved with the IEEE P2807 Knowledge Graph Verification Working Group. He is currently the chair of the working group. He also participated in the development of the 2807 Knowledge Graph Series standards, Knowledge Graph white papers, and numerous other Knowledge Graph related papers and research. Edward Au is a distinguished engineer from Hawaii Technologies, Canada, where he works on product certification, testbed development, and standardization of Wi-Fi. As a chair of the IEEE Computer Society Standards Activities Board Standards Committee, he manages working groups and standards development projects that are under the purview of the IEEE Computer Society. In this role, he also oversees new lines of work or for standards for which a viable standards committee has not been identified. And with that, thank you both for being here today. Edward, I'll give the floor to you to get us started.
Okay, thank you, Scott, for your introduction, and thanks all for joining this webinar. And before we really start to talk about, to introduce the knowledge graph and knowledge graph standard, just would like to share with you a little bit more information. It is because our webinar topics is related to standards and IEEE standard, and especially is related to the Standard Association. So that's why this is required for us to let all of you know that for both Ruiqi and I that present any information on the P2807 standard today, we should make you clear that this is our views, our personal views, rather than the formal position of the IEEE. So this is the notice that we would like you to make it clear. This is our own personal views throughout this 1 hour webinar. And as Scott have mentioned, today the webinar may be a little bit different from the past that there's only one presenter who present the webinar. We would like to consider it's like a more lively style that, somehow I will ask questions to Ruiqi, and then Ruiqi would share with all of you the information about the knowledge graph and also the standardization related to the knowledge graph. And also, we also would like you to know more about Ruiqi at the beginning of the talk, so that you know how he involved in computer science and also he involved in standards, because we understand that not all of you may be involved in standard and you may not know how standard work. So that's why we would like to ask Ruiqi to share a little bit more from his experience, his long-lasting experience in standard, so that you know him and you know standards and you know IEEE standards a little bit more. So Ruiqi, thanks again, for joining the webinars, and thanks for all the work you have done, in Computer Society and also in IEEE Standard Association about the standards related to AI and machine learning. But before we want to know more from you about knowledge graph, can you share a little bit more about yourself to let us know about yourself and how you involved in computer science and computer engineering, Ruiqi?
Yeah, thank you. I want to just to share some experience on computer science. I think during my undergraduate and postgraduate, I touched this computer science. I think it is very interesting because it let us can communicate with the machines and let it know what we say, and also we can to know how we behavior and give some responses to us. And also, we can collaboration with them through some technologies. This is very interesting. And then I think we can understand them behaviors and maybe some thoughts through the programming language. This is the first initial interest on computer science. And next, I want to say, I joined our institute, China Electronics Standardization. I devote myself in computer science, especially the AI and knowledge graph. First, I started with the standardization of smart manufacturing and related some test-based development and construction. However, we find in smart manufacturing, we have to know the machines in the manufacturing, how they get the intelligence and how make them more smart. This need the computer science, especially the AI. So we need to make the machine smart, make the workshop smart, and the enterprises smart. Then we find AI standardization is very important. AI is very important. However, how we can make the machines or workshops or enterprises have the capability to deal with the knowledge automatically. This is more interesting because we maybe have many enterprise knowledge. However, how we transfer them to the machine automatically. So I think we start the standardization or we start to study the knowledge graph and related applications. This is we start in computer science. Yeah, Edward.
Great. So it seems that you actually start falling in love with computer science since the very early beginning. Even during your undergraduate study, and you found a good job that you can also work in the computer science domain after graduation. Yeah. And you just mentioned your first job is already with China Electronic Standardization Institute, and you already start work on standardization, right? So it is also during the time when you get your PhD degree, and then you start to get involved in standardization intermediately. Can you share with us about your journey for, to get involved in standards and also IEEE Computer Society standards?
Okay. I think start in standardization is maybe I joined the standardization study or research is from the China Electronic Standardization. However, during my PhD, I find that the standards is very important for some industries. For example, during my PhD, my topic is to analyze the behavior and the enhancement of renewable energy conversion system during faults happens, such as the higher or lower voltage is happened because some occurrence. We find we must to satisfy the requirements in the published guides or standards from our government or the enterprises. So such as the tolerance time. We have go through the tolerant time of the fault. We have to follow the standards. We find, this is the impact of the standards. The tolerance time design is from the standards. How they obtain the tolerance design ideas. So we find it is very important and it is very interesting. So this is the start of the recognize the impact of the standards. After I joined the China Electronic Standardization Institute, which is an institute focused on standardization of information technology and electronic technology and so on. This gives many opportunities and chances and helps on how to develop standards for me. I know standards to how to design and how to develop standards. Over there, we find that this is different things. And next, I joined the national standards development in China, and then on smart manufacturing and knowledge graph and knowledge engineering. And then I start to go to the development of IEEE standards and ISO or ICGTC1 standards. We find it is some very, very more important standards topic appears to me, and it is. I know to development standards is difficult, but it is very good experience for the development processes. Edward.
Okay, great. So you really have an extensive experience not only in your domestic standard participation, but also IEEE and also even the other international standards like the ISO IEC. So, and what you mentioned is many of your standardization work cover AI and knowledge graph, which are one of the few important areas to our computer society, because maybe some of the participants here also know, we have two flagship magazines. One is computing, another is computer, another is the computing edge. And if you refer to the latest March issue, one of the topic is about AI and software. Are we ready? And I believe actually AI and knowledge graph are very interconnected and relate with one another. So Ruiqi, can you actually share with us actually from your point of view or from your standard group point of view, what is the knowledge graph and why we need to standardize the knowledge graph?
Okay.
Yeah, Ruiqi, please.
This is very good. And can I answer this question?
Yeah, sure, please.
Okay. The motivations of knowledge graph standardization, as I answered before, we find the human can obtain the knowledge. We can communicate with other humans on the knowledge. However, we cannot transfer our complex knowledge on common sense or on the rules or some others to the machines. This is very difficult. And this is a model from the data to the information to the knowledge. We can find a human will know what and know how and know why. And this is more complex. And then if we want to transfer the knowledge from expert to the machines, this is a very important problem of the AI domain. So if the machine can get or obtain the connective intelligence, he can help us more things, such as he can communicate with error in the computer and in the platform to help us to find more interesting things or give our help recommendation and so on. The machine will be more important and more helpful. So the knowledge graph is will to address these problems. And then we find knowledge graph refers to the assemblies of knowledge elements and their relations described in a structured form. You can find in the past the informations and the knowledge appears in the raw mass disconnected documents, such as videos or texts or Excels and so on. It is very hard to query, analyze, and visualize for the machine. Maybe it is very easy to analyze by a human. Maybe he have to be very familiar with these documents. If a human is not familiar with these documents, it is hard to find the key informations. So how we to get the relationship of these documents or this information or knowledge? It is knowledge graph give a resolution on this problem. He collect different elements of knowledge or information collected. This make them more clean, organized, and linked. the linked information it is very variable and very readable for humans. It is also very readable for the machines. We can to make the machine know the relationship of one point to other point, or one station to other station, one machine, human to other machine. It is very easy query, analyze, and visualize for the machine. So this is the knowledge graph. And we know it is very important. So we start this standardization from 2018. Yeah. Next, we motivation of knowledge graph standardization. We know knowledge graph is very important. However, we are not the researchers of knowledge graph technology. We just focus on its standardization. So we find some standardization demands among different stakeholders, because the stakeholders have their individual experience on knowledge graph, and their individual research on knowledge graph. How to make them communication, it is very important, because maybe researcher is expertise of knowledge graph. However, the user and the integrator, it is not familiar with the knowledge graph technologies. He just wants to know how to apply the knowledge graph. So they have difficulty to communicate user and researcher and provider. So we think they need a language, common language, standardized common language or framework to connect them, connect different stakeholders. And next, we find
it seems to me that you are doing some very great things. You know, what you do is now for 2807 in your working group is now a platform. You connect the researchers with the real users who have the demand of the knowledge graph, and they need to use different AI applications for different domains, right? So you are doing something on that, right?
Yes. This is the most and the initial idea from us. We want to standardize the knowledge graph, because they have different languages or different terminologies. This is very interesting. Maybe some say it is knowledge organization. Some say it is knowledge computing. Maybe they are saying all similar things. However, they are not definitions of them. They don't know why they different and why they similar. We need some standards to address this problem. This is the initial standardization demand. And next, we find maybe knowledge graph can be applied to different industries. There are some related system, application system, products, and service have been provided to the users. However, the user don't have the expert knowledge on knowledge graph. They don't know how can control the quality, how to manage the knowledge graph system. Because the knowledge system is not just to construct a knowledge graph. For the user, he is more want to apply this system to address some problem in his domain. So its management of the system or product or service is more important to the users or integrator of the knowledge graph. And also the knowledge graph, it is a dynamic knowledge. We know the knowledge is not absolutely right or absolutely wrong. It need to revise according to the new experience, new research. So we find will be dynamic and dynamic. So we need to manage it by the user self, because it is just the expert in the domain, such as the manufacturing or such as the medical, and the provider of the knowledge graph system. It is just a researcher or expert researcher provider of knowledge graph system. This is different. So we need to control the quality of the system and quality of the knowledge graph. The knowledge system have two parts. One is knowledge graph, and one is the system itself. So we think it is very difficult. So this is also a very important standardization demand. Next, we find the development of and application of knowledge graph in various domains, such as manufacturing and medical. It is different because we need to follow different standards and guides from the different domains, and also the knowledge structure in different domains. It is also different. So we need further and detailed guidance in these different domains to make the user or other stakeholders, and also provider and developers have to know how to develop a qualified and very applicable knowledge graph and knowledge graph related system. So
Yeah, it's really a great motivation, and the free motivation you mentioned are really great for not only the researcher but also the industry, because it's really meet the market demand. So, but in a nutshell, what do you think about the advantage of the knowledge graph standardization from your working group and from your expert point of view, Ruiqi?
I think this is. I think this is the advantage for the standardization. We can obtain through the standards, we can obtain the unified terminologies. This is first, and also the conceptual model of knowledge graph, because how the structure of knowledge graph and the structure of knowledge related system, and next the unified framework of how to construction of knowledge graph, and how to integration of knowledge graph, and how to applicate a knowledge graph. They have different activities. So we need a unified framework because the activities name and their main tasks of the each activity is also important for the developers. And the next, we think the standardization can give the unified performance evaluation index system, because it will to give the guide for control the quality. And the next, clear main activities of knowledge graph stakeholders. If it is a knowledge graph provider, when he develop a knowledge graph, he have two main activities, and each activity he can obtain the purpose. And for the integrator, he have a different purpose of activities. I think some activities is not optional. He have to do some activity. It is very important, and also for the users or other partners. Next, we think the requirements and guidelines of knowledge graph construction, integration, and application in specific domains. As I said, maybe a common main activity of construction, integration, application is not enough for a specific domain. Such as I can just give an example for the medical or manufacturing. For example, we have to do knowledge modeling. We can give the framework of top characteristics and top ideas or other features. How to get the top and the common structure in the knowledge modeling. We have to communicate with the domain experts to obtain his expertized knowledge in his mind. I think there are some communication works in this activity. So if we have to satisfy many guides or standards, we can to give this information in our standards or some other tasks purpose detailed. I think that is also very important. So I need some advantage for the standardization of knowledge graph detail.
Great, Ruiqi. So it seems to me that you really identify a great opportunity, to really define some common language or framework for all people in different domains to have the same language, to talk to one another, to understand one another about the AI application and about the knowledge graph. So I just want to know, it is really what the exact purpose and need, based on the advanced that you list to establish the computer science, the computer society P2807 standard. Can you share with us a little bit more about, the exact purpose and needs for this standard that you are leading?
Yeah, thanks, Edward. Maybe this is just a standard. It cannot address all the standardization demands. So in the standard, in this standard for framework of knowledge graph, we want to address the most important and the most common standardization demands. First, we want to define the frameworks of knowledge graphs, especially the terminologies and the technical framework with the activities and the tasks in different stages of the processes. And this will help the enterprises and SMEs and others which develop application to follow general knowledge graph construction methods. This makes different stakeholders or developers can focus on a small stage of the processes. They can communication with others. For example, one enterprise is focused on the knowledge modeling. Some enterprises will focus on the knowledge visualization. They can cooperation with others to address a common purpose or common project in the first. And the next, we want to help the digital infrastructure of knowledge graph suppliers to understand the knowledge graph diagrams and provide more efficient tools to support the knowledge graph. Because we know the knowledge graph technology is engineering technology. We can find it needs many supportive activities such as the NLP, such as the machine learning, and maybe some graph computing technology. So he needs many tools to support it. And if digital infrastructure supplier, it is more familiar with the framework or diagram knowledge graph, he can find which problem it is he wants to focus to address. The tool will be more efficient. So also can make the provider more can communication and cooperative with the developers of a knowledge graph, such as the cloud developer, IT security engineers, and also the machine learning framework providers, and so on. And then vertical applications may extract more expertise of knowledge graph and generate more applications after applying the standardized framework. It can follow a standardized framework. It can to develop the applications in the verticals. It is also more efficient. So this is the purpose of the project. And for the demands, we think there are two types. First is the AI applications. We think, as I said, some AI applications is focused on how to make the machine see or touch or listen some information of outside, and the AI applications developing towards the expertise of the AI, such as the medical diagnose, autonomous verticals with AI and smart factories, such as medical diagnose, for example. It needs more expertise, knowledge, because you cannot just train a machine to give a very expert recommendation of a diagnose. It needs the knowledge. The knowledge is the focus. However, how to transfer the knowledge? So the AI applications want to more technologies on the knowledge graph in knowledge engineering, and then demands on linking the experts from different industries, but no framework exists. Because different industries maybe have different, through the link of them, we can find more interesting knowledge and more important knowledge. For example, this is the English documents. The next is the Chinese documents. We link them together. We can find more knowledge and to discover more knowledge. It is also, we can help to many domain or experts. Next, we think knowledge graph can help many things, such as access the linking machine learning experts with experts from different industries, such as medical, transportation, and then transform the human knowledge to the machine knowledge, as I said. And also, it is a knowledge graph. It is a very important characteristic is that we can read the knowledge graph, and the machine also can read it. It is very clear, and we can find, oh, this is a relationship from this to that. We can just focus on the entities and its relationships. This is a unified data format for the human and also for the machine. I think the machine, it is very smart, and also it is very not smart. For example, in the bottom, it is just 0 and 1. This is a very simple structure, and knowledge graph just, I think, divided the knowledge, complex knowledge to the simple format, just relation and just entity, and the machine can read it. Maybe it is very manageable than the human knows. The human can shorter of the information, and the machine can read it maybe with enough structure through the knowledge graph. This is our demands and the purpose of this project.
Great. So it seems that there are many, industry demands, to really need to have standards that, different experts with different applications to talk to one another. And, for computer society, we always want to develop market relevant and high quality standard that, good for the industry and good for the market demand. So Ruiqi, can you tell us a little bit more details about the use case that you just briefly mentioned? I mean, from your point of view, what kind of use case and how do we use your standard to this kind of use case?
Okay, thank you. We find many use cases in knowledge graph. They have been developed into the smart finance, healthcare, manufacturing, education, power grid and transportation, retail, agriculture, and the social networks, smart cities, and so on. For example, in Google, we find a query of the summarization. It is very familiar for us. We find something, it will recommendation other things. And also we can discovering related entities. who is wife and who is fathers, for example, and factual answers. Maybe he can directly give your answers. Next, the context research, maybe also the recommendation appears. Next, we can through the knowledge graph to find to obtain the fault ring and detect. We can find some fraud in the relationship networks. And next, the convert knowledge graph also give some recommendations or some results of the convert and with the patents and also the clinical trials and other statistics analyze. And then in the manufacturing, we can use the knowledge graph to explain reason and biases behind the AI-generated findings, because we can make it more explainable. The users of the knowledge graph, including the knowledge graph suppliers, the integrators, users, and also some partners, ecosystem partners such as data provider, infrastructure provider, and consulting, and testing and evaluation and others. And also the knowledge regulators, it is also important because we may touch the data privacy requirements from the government and other rules. Next, the safety and the security service providers, they can to give some resolutions on the safety and security as well.
Okay, great. So it's really covered different kinds of users in different domains, and you just mentioned about the vertical application. So I believe actually for your standard, you really cover many different kinds of areas. Just like what you mentioned about the 10 different use cases at the beginning, So, and I understand, for your working group in the Computer Society, actually P2807 is only one of the many standards you consider, because for 2807 it's like a framework, and actually under the framework you have lots of different kinds of standards that you are also developing in your working group. So, and I also actually see a question from one of the audience: what is the status of the 2807? So, Ruiqi, actually, can you share with us more about, what is the current status of your job 2807, and and what's the other projects that your working group is focused on, on related to knowledge graph?
Okay, thank you. Yes, I think current standards of the P2807, the content of the draft has been frozen in our working group, and also the ballot poll will be established before the March 30 in this month. So we will go to the next steps from our working group. And I think there are also some standards to be developed in the next steps. For example, point 1, the standard for technical requirements and evaluating knowledge graph. And point 4, the guide for scientific knowledge graph. And point 5 for the medical knowledge graph. This is the approved project we will develop in the next step in this year and next year. And also we identified some very important topics we want to apply to standards project from our IC and from IEEE. The point 7 is about the open domain knowledge graph publishing and crowding service. This is a guide because maybe some knowledge graph will be open source and published on the network. So how they need some publishing and crowd sourcing service on this knowledge graph. So we maybe we can give some guidance for them. And the next is the point 8, which is the standard for knowledge exchanging protocol with a knowledge fusion among knowledge graphs. We know maybe we can develop a knowledge graph, the other develop a knowledge graph. How can we them to communicate with others? Then knowledge graphs can share some information or share some knowledge. We think they need a protocol. So this is another project. Also, I want to say, if you are interested on these projects, please contact me. At the bottom is my email. Also,
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, please continue. Sorry, I just say great.
Thank you. Next, we see this is a standard system of knowledge graph. So we give a framework. We did through the discussion which standards need to be developed in the future, or how they can cooperation with other standards. We can find, we give this framework, we can find we need some basic and common standards and some digital infrastructure, such as some basic development platform, knowledge represent tools, and knowledge reasoning tools, modeling tools, and so on. And also some key technology standards about the knowledge representation, acquisition, and others. And on the top, we find the product service standards and some detailed domain applications standards is also very important, such as the point 4 and point 5 and point 7 will to address the standardization demands in these blocks. And in the left, we find that the maintenance, safety, and security. It is very important for knowledge graph because he have a very important information for enterprises or for the humans. So how to make them safety and security? It is also have some standardization demands. So this is our framework. Edward.
Great. So it's based on my understanding from what you share with us, it seems that first of all, you actually identified an opportunity from the industry and from the market demand that there's no existing knowledge graph framework standard. So that's why you want to create a framework so that experts from different applications who lead the AI applications can work together. And then under this framework, you identify different explicit opportunities for example, just like what you say, the 2807.1 to really need to have another standard to talk about the technical requirements, for the knowledge graph. And you also have some other standards that you want to focus particularly on applications, right? So now the medical application, and also the scientific knowledge graph like the Doc 4 and Doc 5. So it's really great. So you and your working group really understand, the industry of the knowledge graph and what you want to do to help the industry to work together. So Ruiqi, I also believe, it's already, we already understand and get many information from you about what knowledge graph standard is and also what your working group is doing for the society and, for IEEE. So, and, it's almost also close to the end of our webinar, but I just, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the webinar, not many of us who joined the call today, understand how standards work and why standards bring us value. So from your point of view, based on your extensive experience and participation in national and international standards, what's the lesson learned what's the experience you have learned from your more than 10 years experience in standard participation? Is there anything that you could share with us, Ruiqi?
Oh, okay. Thanks. I think I also very important, and this gives some helps and effects on my through the standardization of knowledge graph. The positive effects I find through the standardization development. I have more understanding on knowledge graph and its importance and its development future and its standardization self. And next, I think through this appearance, I have more understanding on the IEEE standards development progress. I have more familiar from the approval to draft to ballot to publish. That I think appears this process. And next, I think it is most important. We can create or establish a platform to make different companies or different institutes or universities go together. With, maybe they are on knowledge graph. They can, during the knowledge graph standards development progress, they can communicate with others. They find, oh, this is a very good idea. I can apply this to my researchers or to my product, or we can cooperate with you to develop a new project for a user. Or maybe a user find a very good provider. This is a platform, I think, a communication platform. I think it is very interesting, and also I can communicate with others and obtain more knowledge from them sharing. And next, I think joint discussion, joint decision, and obtain consensus. I think standards is consensus from different stakeholders. We join discussion. Maybe you have positive, he has negative. We can communication, we can discussion, and then we find, oh, this is a common things, and we just decide, oh, we need or make it into our draft, and this is our consensus. I think it is very interesting, and also I get many guidance, important guidance from our SC and SEB experts. I think it is very good experience to share me, and I can follow your guidance and to make me to do further. And since I think in the development, standardization development, we have to contribute enough effort and energy, because we need discussion. It is not just drafting. The discussion and decision consensus is most important. This is not be found on the draft, but it is need many effort and energy. And also be patient on the balance of works and standard development. Maybe some experts have it works on other things. Maybe he is just a product developer, but he must have to get some time to discuss with others to make the standards clear. So they also need to have the patience on this progress. I think this is my helps and effects from our standards development progress, Edward.
Great. So it seems to me that not only you and your working group members need to have strong technical knowledge, but also throughout the standardization process, you and your working group members also learn and also use many soft skills that is good for the career, like the negotiation skill and communication skill. And also, lots of effort and energy, as you mentioned, because it may be a work that lasts for more than a year. And sometimes it's maybe 2 years to have a standard finish. So it's very great. So now, we only have about 5 minutes left. So this is the Q&A time. And, as Scott mentioned at the beginning, for anyone who joined the call today, you are feel free to type in your chat box so that we know we will see what kind of questions you may want Ruiqi to answer. And actually, so far I see a few questions, lots of questions already. So Ruiqi, there is a question from Mark who wants to know whether the P2807 job is available, and if available, where shall we get it? Do you have any information on that, Ruiqi?
This is a good question. I think maybe it is not wide available for each one. It is just on essay level and working group level. I think in the we will to balance quickly, and I think through the effort it can be published through our IEEE in this year. Maybe it is just our plan to make it quickly to available and readable for each one, Edward.
Okay, so that's mean to answer Mark's question, what you say is that right now the standard is under development, and so that's why it is only available among those who participate. So if, for example, if Mark wants to have the job, one of the quickest way for him is to join your working group to participate, so that they know that he can have more information about your job, or otherwise he may need to wait maybe about half a year until you finish the ballot from the Standardization Association and then have the job published in IEEE Explorer, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Thank you, Edward.
I see. Okay. And then I see another question from a link. I'm sorry if I pronounce his or her name incorrectly, but the question is, do you follow existing standards? Why there is a need for a new standard? So can you answer this question also, Ruiqi?
Yeah.
So why? Because we briefly mentioned maybe we don't have any existing standards, so you may want to share with us more information.
Yeah, this is a very good and interesting, and also a very important question. As this expert said, we maybe have some existing standards from the W3C. He have gave us the OWL, RDF, or RDF standards. It is very important standards for the knowledge graph. We also follow these standards on the knowledge representation, knowledge modeling. However, during construction of the knowledge graph, we need the knowledge storage, we need the knowledge computing, we need knowledge acquisition and knowledge fusion from different documents. It is also very important for knowledge graph, and these standards cannot give the standards or requirements in themselves. Thus, we give the standards on knowledge graph. And also, I want to say maybe they are not the international standards on knowledge graph now. So this is our purpose of the project and the projects. Yeah, Edward.
Okay, great. So again, you identify a marketing demand that there is no existing job. So that's why, existing standard on knowledge graph. So that's why you propose in Computer Society and Standard Association to start the knowledge graph projects. And then I see a question from Thomas, who actually asked, has any work started on members of the series? So you mentioned before, let me push to the slide here. You mentioned before you have different kinds of standards. So maybe Thomas want to know, what's the status of the Doc 1, Doc 4, and Doc 5, and Doc 7 and Doc 8. Can you briefly talk about what's the current status about this family?
seed. The point 1, point 4, and point 5 is approval. And the point 1 we have developed for 1 year, and we have the outlines and very draft. Initial draft is under development. And point 4 we have developed for half a year. And we also have the outline and a draft of some chapters. 5 we just started, and the kickoff meeting will be posted in the next month or next month. And point 7 and point 8 we are just on the approval. We are application for this establishment of the project. This is standards status, Edward.
Okay, great. So it's so based on the information we get from you. So for 2807 is very mature. It's close to publication, maybe in a few months. But for 2807.1, 0.4, and 0.5. You are still working with your working group to do that, and there are still opportunities for newcomers to contribute. And then for 2807.7 and 0.8, they are still under the approval from Standard Association before you formally start the project, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, great. Okay, so it's almost the end of our webinar time. So just want all of you know that if you want to know more information from the working group Ruiqi is leading, you could go to the 2807 website that we provide here. And as Scott mentioned at the beginning, we will share the slide with all of you. And then, in our computer society, we also have technical committee on the data engineering, and also we also have one of our flagship publications, which is the transactional knowledge and data engineering, that you could also read any latest issue about related to AI and knowledge graph. And also, if you have time, please also take a look at the latest issues of our flagship publications. I mean the computer and also computing edge, because the current issues about AI and software. So if you are very interested in AI and knowledge graph, take a look at our magazines and understand more about what our society is doing. So Scott, I think we share all of the different kind of high-level information on the standards and also P2807 already. So maybe I give back the platform to you to wrap up, Scott.
Awesome. Thank you, Edward and Dr. Li. That was a great webinar. And a lot of great information was shared, and I think we could tell that from all the great questions everyone attending sent in. But quickly, before we wrap up, I just want to note a few other upcoming webinars. We'll be doing 4 over the next 2 weeks or so. The next webinar from this specific series standard, the standards activities for webinar series, will be on deep learning on April 5th, also at 9 a.m. Eastern. The additional webinars coming up, there's one tomorrow on Thursday from the Build Your Career webinar series. There's one next week on the 31st from our Distinguished Lecturer series, which is part of the Distinguished Visitors Program. And then we'll have 2 on the week of April 4th. One from, as mentioned, the one on deep learning, and we'll have another one from our Build Your Career webinar series. You'll be able to register all of those in the email you receive in the next day or so with the slides and the recording. Again, I would like to thank everyone for attending. Dr. Ruiqi Li for his great presentation, Edward for moderating, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.